So welcome again, everyone. As everybody knows, my name is Dr. Lenore Murciano Luna, and I'm the founder of Conscious Feminine Medicine. And I really specialize in working with women on their spiritual transformation, on reclaiming their power and their sovereignty, and healing on all levels: physical, emotional, mental, and most importantly, spiritual, which really is the root of all of the other dysregulations that we may feel. I also have my cat. She jumps on at all times. So that's what's there. If you hear her in the background, she considers herself part of the group. So just going to let everybody know now. So today we're kind of diving into this arena of as women reclaiming our power and sovereignty. And this is really the premise for my, not the premise, but the foundation that I spent about the last, I think it was about 6 years writing the last book, Birth of the Conscious Feminine, and titled Birth of the Conscious Feminine, A New Era of Feminine Sovereignty. And essentially it's all about, I think that, this whole healing process is synonymous with awakening to our essence, our soul, our spirit, what that even means. How do we weave that through in our humanity, in the aspect of us that's expressing, that's speaking, that's thinking, that's acting in this physical world, right? It's like this, how do we bridge those two aspects of ourself together, and awaken to that? And that allows us to come into our power. And so most of the material is also there, but we're going to be exploring it, just individually, seeing what actually comes up in with this group today. So before we get started, I want to first of all say that we're going to kind of talk a little bit about some of the wisdom and teaching around power and sovereignty as women, because as women it's very different than how we experience it as men. However, I do want to say that none of it is, black and white, so we may, some of these things may be true to you and some of these things may not be true for you. So these are concepts that I've noticed for myself in my own journey, and also, working with women for the last 24 years. And so there's some common denominators which I want to really bring up and allow, in this process of bringing it up, the most important thing, I think, is for you to see where it resonates. It's almost like on one level you're listening to me, but on the other level you're really listening and aware of your own reactions, your own responses to some of this material. And then of course we're going to do a process. We're going to end with a process where you're directly listening and giving you some tools to work with ongoing. This will be it's the intro class for a 6-week journey that will begin September 1st. We'll begin September 1st, and it's going to go for 6 weeks. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But there's no obligation. I even told a couple of you, just come on, get what you need from it, even if it's not, if you're not interested in doing the 6 week, that's fine. But at least, my passion is around kind of, it's like disseminating all of this information and empowering women, because I know how important it is when we don't feel our power, and most women don't feel our power. Part of it is, some of the things we're going to be discussing. But that's my passion, to really be sharing this information with everyone, and kind of having some guidance around where to look, how to look within, how to kind of decipher some of these things for ourselves and move from disempowerment to feeling empowered and feeling like we have agency, that we can speak our truth. So again, as we're doing this, as we're moving through today, just allow yourself to really be tuning in, and really allowing whatever reaction you're having, whether it might bring up some sadness, it might bring up, there's emotions, just allow those to be there. Try not to judge yourself. It's something we do unconsciously a lot. We've been, really entrained for that. Try to be with your own reactions and seeing what areas of you might need more attention, more love. I don't talk in things. Someone reminded me actually in the previous class that I did earlier today that, I don't really like to call things like, oh, we have a blockage here or there's a block there. It's more about what area of yourself might need more love. What area of yourself is in separation, doesn't really know the love, doesn't have the safety. Because I feel that in order for us to even step into our power and feel empowered, we have to really have the safety first. We have to be able to feel safe enough to speak and act, in accordance, in alignment with our deepest desires. We have to be able to, that safety allows us to then, trust ourselves, love ourselves more, trust what we're feeling versus, trying to go out there for acknowledgement all the time. So it's this whole process that I really believe it starts with safety, and from there it bridges out into trusting, loving, having more courage to do ABC. And when we're thinking in terms of safety, there's quite a few roadblocks to that as women we've inherited from our own culture, from being in a patriarchy, from being in a world or living in a world that does not honor a lot of our inherent traits, does not honor our emotions, does not honor our and not just doesn't honor, but actually judges. There's a difference, right? Because you can have something not be honored, not be talked about, but there's actually another layer of judgment, that it's viewed as something weak, that it's viewed as something negative, right? And that we are judged by it. So our emotions, our intuition, and of course how we look, how our bodies look. So all of these things, we're living in a world, of course it's changing, but it's still there in the subtle realms, that we have to overcome these. And what happens is we've internalized a lot of these issues. So these issues become, we are judging, we're judging when we feel fear, for example. We judge ourselves, and we might have self-talk that, doesn't allow us to really, be okay with the fear and move through it and get close to it and see what it is, what are we needing in that place, and even if we do, we might still be judging ourselves. We don't trust our intuition. We want to see it out there. We want to hear people, talking about something before we even dare to mention it, because there's all that fear of being judged. There's all that fear of being rejected, being ridiculed. And so all of these things, it's almost like we have to be willing to see this within ourselves to break out of it, right? This is all part of the conditioning that that is in the way of us experiencing ourselves as empowered, and it's in the way of us actually stepping into our power. So before we keep going down that road, I want to bring it back to, a little bit of what is power? A little bit of definition of what does it mean to be in our power? What does it mean to be in our sovereignty? Because I think that we need to first clarify that. And if anybody read my email, the last email, I talked a little bit about, for me, my journey was, clearly I was raised around women that did not feel empowered to me, that were in a lot of fear, anxiety, survival, as someone mentioned earlier, as Nicole mentioned earlier, survival versus thriving. And they were very spiritual and yet didn't feel empowered. So all of these pieces for me created this, how could I say it? Created all of these existential questions around, spirituality, what is God? What is the divine? How don't we have any agency in life? Are we just disempowered? Are we just supposed to be, just allowing things to happen, like in a very passive way? So it really allowed me to, not allowed me, but actually pushed me into looking at these things. And I had to really understand within me, where is it that I can have power, to actuate, to manifest, to do things in life, and where is this whole idea of surrender, which was which is always a very spiritual concept that, I grew up listening to, right? And so it's like, where's the balance of that? Is it, it's like, do we just surrender? Because that's what we hear. We're in a lot of spiritual circles, right? Just surrender, let go, allow, which is real. However, there's this whole other piece. And I say real meaning that there's a place for that. But then there's this whole other piece of, what's right for me to actually take a step in and, manifest and create goals. And, and so how can they coexist within me? And because we're living in a very distorted masculine paradigm, a lot of us, again, part of our culture, what we hear in our culture is like, oh, if you, there's a lot of self-blame. If you haven't accomplished something, then there, you need to put more effort. You need to do more. It's all about doing and accomplishing. And so that gets kind of twisted because there's a part of us that actually has to surrender. And it's like this dance, right? So my point is that this whole journey has been around really finding, where do I have agency? Where do I have agency? And where do I also bring in this dance of surrendering? And what does that even mean? So that was kind of like one of the biggest quests, where where it also kind of went into this field of, where does the divine start within me? How do I really relate to the divine? What's my relationship to the divine? Is it something outside of me that is dictating like my whole life? Or as I began to really explore this and be with, it's more about, it's something actually that I am. It's something that is a source consciousness that my spirit is, that my essence is. And how do I have a relationship with that? So of course, as many as you can imagine, that those questions really have to end up triggering this, big issues. Big issues. It's like, what is my relationship with God, the divine source, And in a patriarchy for women, I mean, we really, when we start to question that, there's a lot of religious patterns of very, very painful trauma that has come down along that pipeline. And so where I'm getting to is really this understanding that power, the way that I'm speaking about power, is in relationship to our divine essence, in relationship to our spiritual dimension, and accessing that within us, right? And so we have to be able to look at that and clear, a lot of the pain that we've inherited from, from maybe the very challenging religious indoctrination that we as women have experienced for the last 5,000 years. And we have to be very honest with ourselves. We have to be willing to feel what's right. It's like on one level we might have a lot of trauma and get triggered, and it's hard to trust ourselves because it's like, when is it coming from, a trigger, or when is it coming from trying to prove something, or when is it coming from more of an egoic level versus when is it really what my soul is needing? When is it really coming from our soul, and how do I trust myself versus trusting what somebody else is telling me to do, right? Because religion on many levels is about, you have to follow A, B, C, D, and if you don't, then, something very bad's going to happen to you. And when that A, B, C, D, when we check into ourselves and we feel like, okay, but that's not really right for me, that doesn't feel right, how do we move into starting to trust ourselves? Because ultimately the divine, and your soul is divine, your essence is divine. And getting to that place where we can trust that is key in feeling empowered. And so when we talk about surrender in terms of power and sovereignty, the surrender is not about surrendering to something outside of yourself. Again, this is about sovereignty, and it's not sovereignty to our ego, but sovereignty to that divine dimension within us. Sovereignty to the place within us that doesn't know, that you can actually connect with, because that divine dimension within us is connected to source. It's connected to the source that's within, without, everywhere. That's in everything. That gives rise to the creation all around us. And so that's what we're surrendering to, right? So that surrender is really important, because we have to come to the place to understand that we don't always know what the next step is in our journey, or in anything really. And so instead of just moving from our mind, part of the feminine path is about moving from a deeper place, from the place of, we might call it the place of wisdom, we might call it from our soul connection, from our feminine soul. It's really moving from this place that is in union. It's also the unity consciousness that's in union with the divine, with source, with all that there is, right? From that place of oneness. And that we access within us. It's not something we access outside of us. It's something we access within us. And that is so important, because that's the difference between power over, like feeling empowered. Okay, great. Yeah, I need everybody to be muted. And so feeling empowered by doing things and getting that kind of, acknowledgement from the outer, versus feeling empowered and in alignment with our whole self, right? With that divine essence within us, with our soul. And if we're going for power that is about doing in life, and it's about, outer power, what happens is the minute we don't get that attention or that acknowledgement from the outer, then we feel powerless again, right? So it's contingent upon, outer things happening. And so again, the sovereignty piece and the power piece that we're talking about is really power to connect with our whole self, to connect with the spiritual dimension that is the source of all things, and to connect with and to be able to actually express that through our actions, through our thoughts, through our voice, into the outer world, into our humanity, into the physical world, right? Because we're human beings. We're human is our humanity, the aspect of us that, feels emotions, that feels the separation, that's doing in the world, and the being aspect of us, which is our spiritual dimension, right? So it's a process of wholeness. It's a process of really accepting and understanding how these two aspects of yourself can coexist, work together, how you can be in greater alignment, right? So when we talk about alignment, I'm sure a lot of you, have heard, the term alignment comes along. Well, what are we talking about really? It's about alignment to our deepest soul desires, to our deepest soul essence. And along with saying that, you have to understand that when we talk about our soul is what is, our soul is where we can connect with the greater source, with greater spirit, right? So it's almost like understanding that when we talk about our soul, we're not talking about this other separate entity. It's like, yes, we have an individuated soul, but we're connecting with our essence. We're connecting with the divine. And in that place, when we're in alignment, it's almost like being able to root ourselves in that and feel the power that there is there. So let's talk about the 7 different powers that we have inherently when we're in connection with our soul. And I'm sure there's a million others. I'm just going to talk about 7 because those are the archetypes that that have kind of come through and that I work with, and that I feel are pretty critical in connecting with our power. So, what do we have power in this physical world? What do we have power to do? We have power to create, right? So the creation is we have power to create and manifest, whether we're aware of that or not, whether we understand how that works or not, we do. We have power to transform. As human beings, we have power to transform. And I will share afterwards a little diagram that I have that kind of puts all of these in connection with each of the chakras and with each of the, our superpowers, and with each of the, the archetypes. And I'll share that with you afterwards. So we have power to transform. What does that mean? That we as women, we're designed in this physical body and energetically to transform. So not only can we transform spirit into matter, as we do when we give birth, for example, become pregnant, conceive, but we can also transform emotions. We can transform different levels of energy. We can transform denser emotions into higher frequencies. We can transform this whole process of alchemy within us. So just kind of have that as one area. We can create, which is the second one that connects with our sacral womb. We can create. We can manifest in this world, right? We can create from something on many levels. We won't get into all the details, but we can heal. right? We can heal. We can allow our bodies to heal. And we have this. We have this innately. You can see it very easily when you get cut on your skin. The skin kind of comes back together, unless it's very, very big cut, and then it needs a little bit of support. Skin comes back together and heals. We've all experienced physical healing, I'm sure. In this room, we've all experienced emotional healing. We've all experienced healing on some level. We have the power to love, right? We have the power to love. The power to love creates many, many shifts and changes. Power to love, you could say that the power to love creates healing. You could say that the power to love attracts, right? Because it's magnetic. So let's just say we have the power to love. We have the power to how do we want to say this? We have the power to speak truth, right? We have the power to, and when we're speaking truth, that also creates shifts and changes. It liberates energies and liberates us even. So we have the power of truth. We have the power of our more subtle realm, which is the power to intuit or the power to see. But I don't mean seeing on the physical realm. I mean seeing on the spiritual realm. So our vision, but the spiritual vision, we have the power to see that. We also have the power, to feel good. We have the power of joy, of bliss, and of feeling good. We have that. That's actually a power. All of these are inherent in us. And all of these are you could say that they're all sourced from our spiritual dimension, from our soul. Right? So these are 7. From these 7, like I was just saying, there's, it just branches out into many others. But even these 7, we were just focusing on these 7, what I call these superpowers of our soul, of our feminine soul. These 7 are pretty, they're pretty amazing. If we felt confident that we had these or have these, and that we can actually tap into them and bring them out into our physical realm, right? So I'm just going to ask you could just give me a show of hands. How many people are connected to all 7 of these? You feel confident in bringing all these out, all 7 of them. Okay. How many people feel very confident in bringing like maybe 3 of these out of all 7? I'm just going to bring you out so I could see. I'm still pinned, so nobody's going on the recording, I believe. So we were saying about 3. So 3, anybody for 3 or 2 or 1? No, everybody that brought their hands out are on all 7. Okay. And what percentage of the time do you feel, you can also write it on the chat. What percentage of the time, from 0 to 100, do you feel that you are in all of 7 of these powers? 100% of the time? 50% of the time? 30% of the time? 10% of the time? Just curious. Everybody can write it.
I would say 90.
Okay. Wonderful.
I literally was just typing 90.
Yeah, good. You can say it out loud. I know most people don't even have their chat open. I don't use the chat a lot myself. Anybody else? 30, 40, 10. No judgment here. Nobody else?
Um, all seven.
It's a tall order, I know.
Repeat those again. I feel like I'm pretty connected most
We
of
have
the
the
time.
power to transform. So, in other words, we're using all seven of these every day in our lives. We're transforming things, we're creating things, we're healing, we're loving, we're speaking our truth or being in our truth no matter what, any situation. We're able to see beyond the physical. You know, we could see all of the, you know, the behind the scenes miracles and even in our challenges, right? We can see because if, you know, from that place, nothing bad ever happens. They're all challenges for us to grow. So we could see that. And we're in our joy and our bliss, right? So what percentage of the time we're in those powers?
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty much that's how I live.
Well,
I
then I think none of you needs to be here then.
80%.
I'd say 50.
80%.
Okay. Because that's a pretty tall order.
I say 50.
Okay, thank you. I got you. I heard. Thank you.
Maybe 80 now.
And that's okay. There's no judgment. You know, it's almost like I could say that, you know, yes, I know all of these. When something happens, do I respond from those places 90% of the time? Hell no. I wish I did. Can I get to that place? I could probably get to that place with some process. 60, 70% of the time. Are there some pieces that, you know, that I might still be working on, you know, after a few months or maybe even years? Yes, you know, there's things that are still healing, are still evolving. So I'm not in that power 100%. I'm not. Do I know it? Yes. I mean, I think intellectually we know all of this, you know, but can, you know, are we in it? Are we in it? Are we experiencing it? Are we living from that place? And I think that's, you know, that's what we all want. That's where the challenge is, right? And that's where we're going. So that's the good news. So I just wanted to get a sense of everyone, where everybody is. Can we all mute? Somebody's unmuted. Unless you want to say something. Okay. No. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what gets in the way, right? What gets in the way of us, because we all know this. I mean, it feels like most of you knew these, that we inherently have these and many other powers. These are what I call the feminine superpowers. So what's in the way? What gets in the way? And I think that looking at what gets in the way for our ability to express these, to live from these, is what's key, because these are, again, not something that we have to get. It's like if we think of these also as synonymous with, like we said, awakening and enlightenment, it's not like that we have to get somewhere. You know, it's not like we have to, I don't even know another word for get, but it's like we don't have to go after these. We have to, because they're already inherent in us. It's who we are, right? So understanding that it's who we are, it's who our soul is. We carry these qualities in our soul, in our spiritual dimension. It's what the divine is. And of course, source, as the great spirit, is much more than just our individuated soul, of course. But these qualities all come from that dimension. They're rooted in that dimension. And accessing that dimension is part of the journey, right? Learning to access that dimension. How do I access that dimension when I'm in fear? How do I access that dimension when I'm in hopelessness, or when I'm in grief or sadness? How do I access? So accessing that part of us is part of the journey. That's one of the things that gets in the way, right? That we haven't been taught how to access that. We haven't learned those ways in. And so that's a big part of the journey. Accessing that, trusting that, knowing that. Even if we're not seeing it outside of us. Because again, we're living in a world that doesn't really display these things. On the contrary, it's more about doing on the outer to achieve things. And when we're doing on the outer, it's never going to take us to this place of empowerment, because it's an inner journey, and it's an inner process. And unfortunately, schools are not teaching this yet. And it would be a great thing for little kids to start to trust themselves, because they're already in that space most of the time, and so just kind of like continue weaving that throughout their lives. But that's maybe something you guys will undertake in your lifetimes, or the next generations. So understanding and accessing our divine wisdom, our divine dimension, if you may, is one thing. The second greatest hurdle is really understanding, working with all of the inherited trauma, conditioning, all of the survival responses that we've learned, that many of them are even unconscious, but that we still use as our filters to see ourselves through, to see our world through, right? So, a lot of the inherited trauma is based on not just our personal experiences, as some of you mentioned earlier. You've had trauma, you've had very challenging, difficult situations, and you're working through that, and you're healing from that, and that's very commendable, because you're aware that there's something more than perhaps what those filters, what those patterns, what the shame, the fear, that's inherent in that kind of trauma, which, by the way, we all have to some degree, but not just ours personally, but also as women, what we've inherited from all of the generations of women before us in the last 5,000 years or so, which is a lot of generations. We've inherited powerlessness. We've inherited lack of safety, lack of safety to speak our truth, because it wasn't, it wasn't safe to speak our truth, a few generations back. I mean, in some places in the world, it's still not safe to speak our truth as women, as this gender, that we're in. It's not safe to, be emotional, feel our feelings, because then we're labeled as, weak, or too emotional, or too sensitive, or too, in reality, it has its place. It's informing you. It's actually allowing, when we feel our emotions, when we feel our tears, we allow ourselves to actually cry the tears. That's part of the transformation power that we have, and most of us don't, maybe here we do, but outside our society, judges, right? We have to deal with the judgment coming in from the outside around, maybe being in a meeting and showing some tears, really releasing some emotions. And a lot of times we don't even realize that we're doing it for the group. It's not even just ours. We're actually, because we're channels we're actually doing it for the whole group. But because we have that channel open versus, many people may be in that meeting, they may not know that. So my point is that really looking at and exploring our thoughts, our emotions, our patterns of our own, where we've internalized our own, where we've internalized the shame, where we've internalized the fear, the survival fear that is so great within us, that doesn't allow us to even go there, even feel those feelings, because they're so scary. And it feels, most of the time, at least in my experience and most of the women that I've worked with, is that it feels like death. It feels like a part of you is dying. And that's not somewhere we want to kind of venture off by ourselves, right at that place of where it feels like, if I say this or if I do this, I'm not safe. That's survival fear. And we all have that woven into our unconscious very, very strongly. And so these things, these patterns, these survival patterns, is part of the paradigm that we're awakening from. So we're awakening to like these survival patterns and all of this fear and this shame that was passed on from woman to woman to woman to woman to me, is holding me back from really being myself, which really means to being in your power, to being in connection with these powers within you, with these aspects of your soul. And being able, and the healing comes from when we are able to see that and say, okay, these are all conditioning patterns. It's not really who I am. So understanding that we are, that we have these superpowers and that we are this spiritual dimension. And then weaving enough love to not reject this part of us, not reject or even judge the part of us that has all of these survival, that feels the fear, that feels the shame, that is sad, that is scared. Right? It's not about pushing that away and just like, oh, we're just gonna, focus on the creation, focus on on this manifestation, because that ends up being spiritual bypass, right? It ends up being like, oh, just bringing in the light and being with the light and the light and the light, which is all great. However, unless this gets dissolved here, this is always kind of right underneath there, right? It's another layer. And so we actually have to move through. We have to move through and embrace and be very honest with ourselves, and very, very gentle with the places where we're feeling all of these patterns, where we're feeling all of the shadow, we can call them, where we're feeling especially the fear and the shame, the terror, sometimes the grief, and not judge ourselves from it. Even if we've been doing healing for years, it's like we're still going to have places, where we feel sad. And sometimes we'll know why, and sometimes we won't. And just understanding that we are human. Yes, we are spiritual, we're spirit, we have a soul essence, but we're also human. And we're also just going to feel sadness and fear. And instead of making that wrong because you should have gotten over it, or it's almost like, oh, okay, how can I feel my soul essence? How can I connect to source and bridge that and hold that place where I'm scared? And that is happening right here in your body, which is another element of spirituality that's also, made wrong. It's happening right here in your body. Your body is where you could feel your soul. It's not just a concept in your mind. It's not just something you read. It's actually an experience. You could feel your soul in your body, through the sensations in your body, through the sensations, the experience literally in your body. Which, by the way, on the other side of that is the fact that we can feel those sensations also of our trauma, of our patterns, of everything that we've inherited. Those also get somatized into our energy body, and we feel it through our body. We feel the fear, we feel the sadness, we feel the hopelessness, we feel the places that we feel disempowered, where we judge ourselves. And we're still, the reason why we feel it there, the reason it's somatized in the energetic body is because it didn't have, it wasn't able to be received by someone. And because we didn't feel safe, we reject it, we hide from it, we push it down, we push it away, and yet it still lives in our energetic body until we're able to actually feel it. And it's almost like bringing it into love, feeling it, bringing the light to it, bringing that compassion to it, and sometimes we need to do this with another person, sometimes we can do it for ourselves, and allow it to express. It's almost like taking away that layer that says, it's wrong, you're wrong for feeling this, you should have never felt that, which is shame, and allowing it to express. And what happens is, it's like if any of you have been in contact with a child that's really scared, and you give that child a hug, you're bringing love to it, you're bringing acceptance to it, you're bringing that you are the field of love in that moment, and you're bringing that love to that child, and the fear starts to dissolve. It's like the child is able to feel your love and feel safe, and it starts to dissolve. And it's not necessarily a mental process. Maybe the challenge is still there, and yet there's safety in that moment, right? They are able to feel something. I mean, and maybe you have had that experience with other people that can do that for you and bring in that love, and whatever you're feeling, as irrational as it may be, but they can hold that space of love. And that's how we can heal these places that we haven't had that in before. And these are also called places of trauma. So I'm just going to kind of pause here for a minute, because I feel like there's a lot in the air. There's a lot of energy. I've said a lot of things. And so is there any questions or any thoughts? If anybody wants to say something, they can. I'm going to pause the video just in case. Okay, so we're going to do a process now based on everything that we were speaking about, and really a process of reclaiming our power in those places where we might feel disempowered. So let's take a few minutes to close our eyes and just kind of come into yourself, come into your body, come into your space. And if you do have essential oils, I always like to use some essential oils because they begin this process of tuning into our senses. It connects us with the earth, with all of the gifts of our Mother Earth. And so just tuning in. Let's begin with tuning into our breath. And you're just going to follow me through this process, and we're going to see where it leads. So just take a deep breath. Connect with your breath. Connect with your body. Letting yourself slow down. And becoming aware of your breath and bringing one hand to your heart and your left hand to your womb space. Breathing into these places here. And letting yourself just be with this process. And just connecting, feeling, letting go of any agenda, any idea of what this has to look like. What does reclaiming your power look like? We're going to let go of any idea about that. And just bring your awareness into your heart and feel. It's very, very important that we feel our sensations physically, emotionally, that we start to have a deeper relationship with our ability to feel, to sense, to intuit. And just opening that up. Opening that up. And just noticing what's in your heart. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring into the heart, into our awareness, and we're going to feel it in our heart, maybe one area that you feel disempowered. Whatever that might be. It might be maybe in a relationship, maybe with money, maybe at home, maybe in your family, maybe with your children, maybe at work, maybe in your career. One place, maybe it could be a specific situation that has happened recently that you feel disempowered by. And sometimes these are patterns that we've experienced for a very long time. It could be also feeling unworthy, unloved, alone. So just notice what you feel, what that one place of disempowerment is, and just allow yourself to be with it very, very gently. Just allowing yourself to really feel what that feels like in your heart. Welcoming, inviting those feelings that perhaps, a lot of times we reject and we push away. So just noticing. And even if they start to become a little bit uncomfortable, just allow yourself to witness and also feel those feelings. It might be bringing up fear or shame, grief, sadness. It might be some very uncomfortable emotions, maybe even anger, and just become aware of it, but don't allow it to overtake all of your senses. Just kind of notice, oh, okay, in this place, these are the feelings that are arising, right? And so just giving them enough space to feel them, but not be consumed by them. And just noticing. Beautiful. So we're going to allow that to just be present there in our heart. And at the same time, now we're going to work with our womb space, where our left hand is on our womb, on our sacral womb, our whole pelvic cavity, your lower abdomen. And so here, I want you to notice, feel your root chakra, feel the sacral chakra, and your roots. So if you're sitting, you feel your sitting bones, and just notice your sitting bones kind of connecting with the earth, your energy from the root, from your perineum, from your cervix, going all the way down into the root of the earth, and feeling those roots there, feeling the connection with the ground beneath you. And feeling that ability to actually just let go into the ground, where you can feel held, where you can rest, right? Start to feel that place in your body, in your lower chakras, in your lower body, where you can just rest. And just breathing into that connection. If you have your feet on the floor, you can feel it from the soles of your foot, of your feet, going down into the earth. And then you can feel the earth's energy holding you. It's like you can feel that magnetic field, right, of gravity kind of holding you close to her, holding you close to the earth. And then letting that expand throughout your whole pelvic cavity in your womb. That feeling of resting, that feeling that someone's got your back, that feeling that you can rest in something bigger than you. And in this case, we're speaking about the relationship between you and the earth, right? And so just allowing yourself to really feel that in your lower body, in your womb, and letting it expand and expand and expand with each breath. That resting, that safety just keeps expanding. Because the truth is that in your womb, you do have that template. You do have that connection with the cosmic womb. You do have that connection with Source. And it's already imprinted in your being and in your womb. And it's imprinted there. It's who you are. So we're just allowing our conscious awareness to connect with that spiritual dimension that is us. That aspect of our being. That is where we feel the safety. And so just feel that in your body. Start to feel it in the womb. Start to feel that rest, that safety. And as you breathe and strengthen this awareness of between you and the earth, let that expand, that feeling beyond your womb and even beyond the earth, and go more into the cosmic womb, right? Seeing the cosmos as that cosmic womb, where that darkness where everything is being birthed from, right? So that's what we call Source. And so just seeing yourself also being held by Source. And it's more like you're, in a way, you're this egg, and it's held by the earth and the womb of the earth, and then you have the big cosmic womb, the cosmic egg, and you're in those fields. You're being held at all times by those fields. You could just allow your body to relax into that. Yeah, and start to feel that very concretely in whatever it is that you're sitting on or laying in. You can start to feel very supported, knowing that that's all being manifested by this cosmic womb, by Source herself. And you're part of that manifestation. You're part of that whole matrix, that whole design. And so just see if you can allow that safety to expand in your body. And so sometimes you have to allow this and sit with this for minutes, and cultivate. So the more that you sit with this reality in your being, the more that you allow new neural pathways to be created, and that you allow yourself to realize this dimension and this relationship with Source, that you can feel that through your body, and that you can feel that safety in your body, and that you are safe, and that you are contained by Source. And so as we're doing that, and we're feeling that in our womb and our lower body, let that feeling of safety, of presence, start to expand from the lower womb into your torso, into the upper chakras, moving into your heart, expanding upward and outward. And it's like almost letting it come and merge with this place in your heart that you felt very disempowered. Yeah. And just allowing those two places within you to merge. Breathing and allowing, and breathing and allowing. And it's almost like the disempowerment, the constriction of that feeling in your heart is getting penetrated by the frequency of love, of safety, of light coming from that connection with Source. And just allowing that to happen. Breathing, breathing. So allowing that transformation to happen in your heart. And just noticing what emotions you are feeling in your heart. So there might be a place where you feel, I am very afraid. I'm very afraid. I'm scared. I feel lost. I don't know what to do. And so just allowing that place to be there, those feelings, as you breathe in. It's almost like this river of Source within you, that is you. You're allowing it to move through you, and you're surrendering this place of disempowerment into that river. You're surrendering. This is where the surrender comes in, right? You're surrendering it to your source being, your source soul, your connection where your soul is connected with source. Letting go. And letting go of figuring it out, even in this moment. And letting it be penetrated by these higher frequencies of love, of possibility, of safety. And bringing it up all the way, bringing that energy to expand in your heart and letting your heart open and surrender into that river and that ocean of love, of safety. Like leaning back into it, where you can lean back and be in that not knowing for a few minutes. It's like it's okay to be in that not knowing and also surrender and trust. Because the truth is, in that connection with your source, with your soul, is where the new inspiration comes from, is where you break the patterns of this empowerment. And where the wisdom comes through as well. And you might even notice, as you're just in this place of surrendering and allowing, what are some of the thoughts, the beliefs within you that you've been operating with? You know, maybe the belief that it's never going to happen for you, or you don't deserve that much joy or feeling good. You might see where you're wired to actually struggle, because that's been a pattern, an ancestral pattern. And so as you see these thoughts, these beliefs, you're also consciously surrendering them as well. Noticing that those are old beliefs, and that you no longer are willing to subscribe to those. And just allowing yourself to just continue to breathe and become aware as these beliefs start to be seen within you. And this is part of the responsibility of looking at what you've been holding in your psyche and willing to let it go, and willing to release it, willing to no longer participate in that. And it's a conscious process of becoming aware and then surrendering. And sometimes we don't surrender because we don't know what's on the other side. Therefore, we have to be willing to surrender into the not knowing. It's like, I'm surrendering this belief here, and I'm open. I'm open to be shown from the place of love, from the place of source, from the place of divine essence, from the place of wisdom, how I can expand and evolve and bring in a greater truth about who I am, about what I'm capable of, right? Remembering those 7 powers that we talked about, it's, is that one of the 7 powers? Is this a place where I'm believing that I can't manifest, or that I can't have or live in pleasure or joy, because that's not really possible? So these are some of the beliefs, and then we can just surrender them. And then, what is the truth? Asking the wisdom in your being, what is the truth about? What is the greater truth in this situation? Wherever it is that the disempowerment is connected to. So maybe the place where you feel you can't live in joy and in peace. So what is the truth about that? The truth is, it's my right to live in joy and peace, that the peace is already within me. The truth is that it's my right to live in the abundance and in the creation and the creativity. The truth is that I can have those things. And I do already have that in my being. And I can manifest that if I'm willing to believe and see that part of myself. I am worthy. And I don't have to do anything for it. I don't have to do anything to earn that, is what I'm saying. Like, I don't have to be good enough. I'm already good. And my essence is good. And my essence is love. So I'm already worthy. There might be some action steps that I need to take, and that'll come later. But I don't have to earn it necessarily. I have to be willing to see, trust, and embody the place in me that's already good enough, that's already feeling, being the love. And so what's the truth behind these filters, these beliefs that are going on in your mind and in your heart? And then allow yourself to repeat those. Allow yourself, as that energy continues to rise into your head womb, it's like allow yourself to repeat those as affirmations for yourself. It might be just one. It might be just, I am love. I am abundance. And I am capable of living that love, manifesting that love and living that love in my life. I am worthy. I am love. I am abundance. And see yourself, if there's a particular experience that you've had, see yourself in that same experience, but with the outcome of this new awakening to this new reality. So see yourself, what it would look like to feel confident to have that power in that experience, manifesting that from within yourself. And then repeat that affirmation in your head womb. Repeat it in your heart womb. Yes, that is possible for me. Yes. I can have that. I can have love joy, abundance. I feel confident. I trust my ability, my intelligence. I receive from others. I share with others and I am received lovingly. So again, these are some of the ones that I'm feeling from the group. So whatever is right for you. And then say that to yourself a few times to allow yourself to hear it, to allow the neural pathways to be created, fortified, and strengthened. Yeah. And then feel that all the way down to your root. Feel it all the way down to your root. Up and down your spine. Feel that frequency of whatever that affirmation is for you. It's an I am, or I see myself, or I have the right to, or I am. Any of those to begin your affirmation. And then let yourself see that. How does that feel to have that in your life and be out there in the world with that, owning that, manifesting that, whatever that is for you. Wherever it is that you are needing to feel like you have agency and power and confidence. Beautiful. Beautiful. And so for the next few days, you can take those affirmations and work with them and write them. And the way that I like to work with affirmations is that you write them and then you feel them in your body. So you would say the affirmation and then you would close your eyes and you would feel it from your womb to your heart to your head womb, all the way up. Let that energy come up and out and expand like spherically, like a sphere, all the way out and around you. And then that starts to attract, because you're always in resonance with the world around you, the outer world, the inner world. You're in this dance. And so as you use those affirmations and you feel them, they're rippling out of your energy field, and then you're attracting opportunities to experience that, but also opportunities that might challenge you as well, as we're kind of shifting from the old paradigm into the new paradigm. And so you have that, coming in as well. So, be very gentle with yourself in these situations and take these opportunities to actually deepen the relationship and cultivate these places within you so that then they can manifest outside of yourself. So this is something you can also repeat this process over and over and cultivate this daily. If there's something in particular that you would like to shift in your consciousness and embody one of those 7 power, the superpowers that we talked about. So let's just end the practice by bowing our heads, thumb to our head womb, our heart womb, and then we reverse it and we pinkies to our lower abdomen, our sacral womb, and bow in gratitude for all that we've received in this moment and in every moment from the divine, the great mother, from source. We thank you and all of the grace that we're always receiving, whether we're aware of it or not. And so I want to thank all of you, and this is just a short experience of one of the processes, one of the somatic embodied processes that we're going to be working with as we explore this theme of power and sovereignty in the next 6 weeks. So I'm opening this up for a limited amount of women to work with them, and it's going to be a 6-week process, a 6-week class. It's going to be on Friday nights Eastern time, Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, beginning July 1st. And this series, this workshop will also include 2 private sessions, because we're going to be in the private sessions with me. Each participant will work with their astrology chart. We're going to work with the astrology chart and look at where Pluto is in your chart, and wherever Pluto is in your chart has to do with your ability to connect to power, where you feel disempowered in this lifetime, and also depending on the sign and the house, and then all of the different correlations with the other planets that it might be in connection with in your chart, all the different aspects, really speaks to your particular challenges to power in this lifetime. So we're going to look at that and then do also a healing around that, so we can bring it into consciousness and you can work with that specifically during your 6 weeks. The other session that we're going to do individually, that I'm going to do individually with each person, is also about looking at your astrology chart, and according to your planets and the time that you're born, there's also a particular signature, there's a rhythm signature that we can do on the drum for when you were born, and we can do your sun rhythm, the moon rhythm, and specific for this class we're going to be doing the Pluto rhythm. And that rhythm, when you play it on the drum, or you can play it on your body, it actually starts to align you with, your soul's rhythm for whatever that theme is. So in this case with Pluto, it's all about where you can feel your power and sovereignty. So and I like to do it with the sun and the moon as well. So you're going to be working with that with me individually, so then you can also apply that during the 6 weeks. And if you don't have a frame drum, I'm going to be using my frame drum. Like my rhythm, my sun rhythm is, let's see if I remember it. That's very easy for anyone to play, and if not, you can also do it on your body. And if you think of sound and rhythms as frequencies, right? So it's a particular frequency that starts to move things in a certain direction, in a certain alignment. So da 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 doom, da 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 doom. that rhythm does something that helps to weave in the frequencies of my soul directly into my awareness, my consciousness, and vibration. Everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. So we're kind of working with these core root pieces to bring us into alignment, to help us, support us in this process of empowerment. So I'll have the details below on that, or you can DM me or email me directly. And we're going to begin July 1st. And so I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that this has been powerful for you. We're also going to be working with my latest book, Birth of the Conscious Feminine, a new era of feminine sovereignty, because it really delineates a whole process of how to really connect with our essence and step into this new era of feminine sovereignty that we're all in. We're all in this big, huge consciousness shift, and awakening to the feminine within us is very, very important, especially for women. So I want to thank you, and hope to see you there, and many blessings. Peace.